Hey folks, and welcome to another video that I created on the different levels of enlightenment that I went through, different epiphanies or aha moments as I like to call them, of using GitHub Copilot and becoming a better, stronger user because of that. Making Copilot do more work for me, because that's the intent of course, so I can focus on the actual business value that I'm creating. If you want to see the other videos in the series, then I definitely recommend checking it out. There's a link at the end of the video as well that you can use to find them all um, and hopefully learn a lot more from those as well. This specific video is focused on level 3, copying method calls as comments. And this is an interesting one because it took a while for me to internalize this, and it became better over time while I was working with that as well. And I've noticed that it really depends on the language that you're doing these things in as well. What I mean by that is sort of changing the way that it works, and more of a TDD style type of things. You can see here on highlight 1 saying, okay, I want to do something with a method, I want to call that. And I start writing out that method and how I want to call that on the top level, saying, hey, this is get biggest organization in an example, and there's a parameter called org list, and I'm sending in the results from our previous call in there. And this is PowerShell, and PowerShell is pretty verbose if you look at the way that it declares all the variables in the method call, for example, all the params. You can see that here in box 3. The org list results, transforming that from this is the way that we're calling that method into creating that method takes quite a lot of work. You can see that we have the function declaration on a line. Now we have a new line with param in there. We have a parameter declaration there saying this one is mandatory, for example. And then we specify, hey, this is an array. And only after 5 lines, you actually start coding the implementation of the method. So going from highlight 1 here to 3 takes quite a couple of steps in PowerShell, especially, of changing those little declarations as well. What I've noticed is that, hey, if I give Copilot my method signature as a comment of this is what I'm calling there, and I prompt Copilot to actually do something with that suggestion, it will probably write out both the method signature for me, as well as the entire method implementation. With that, it saves me a lot of time of doing things in my editors as well. So can you see the flow here? I have an example in highlight 2. This is how I start working with that as well. And the reference to TDD is basically that same setup as well. Instead of starting at the lower level, implementing that function, I start on the top level of, hey, I want to call a function, and this is the calling signature that I want to have, which you would do in TDD as well, saying I'm going to call this method, and you should run it, and then it should fail, for example, saying that method isn't there. So if I give that to Copilot, it will potentially implement an entire method for me. Let's do a quick demo to see how that actually works in practice. Switching back to an editor, and I started building up a set of planes that I have in all the demos that I'm giving here. And I started building up a new method saying I want to get all filtered list of planes from the list of planes that I have. And in this case, I'm sending in a bool saying this is military, yes or no. And I want to start implementing a method that determines if a plane is, for example, listed as a military plane, yes or no. So basically, that's also what you would do with TDD, saying, okay, I have determined a new business thing that I want to do. I want to have a business rule in here, for example. Apparently, I have to have a property that says is military, and I don't have that in my class right now. So I would start writing something like planes equals, and then Copilot already starts to help me saying, give me a list of, give me a new planes object that I can actually also return and implement this, otherwise my OCD will kick in. And it says, okay, we have planes where filtered on is military to list. Something like that could definitely be something we could build. I could also go a different route and say get filtered planes, and saying this becomes a method call. So I'm no longer implementing it myself, but I want to create that somewhere in a library object that I have, for example, or potentially just do it in the planes class, for example, do it there. What I would normally do is copy this over, start somewhere with, for example, a private, and then do something like, hey, this I paste in my method signature. So I already need to remove that colon at the end and start typing and doing things. And I didn't change my declaration yet. So I need to tell it that this is also a Boolean, for example. That takes quite a lot of work. And then I can actually start focusing on, oh, I actually want to return something in here. So this is a list of planes. More examples of, okay, this is a lot of work implementing that as well. And now I can start actually writing that code, for example. Okay, so the quicker way to do that is giving Copilot a comment saying this is what I want to achieve, paste in that signature in here, and then trigger Copilot, say this is what I want to do. Copilot is smart enough to say, hey, we are in a class, we should define a method in here, so potentially based on the signature that I see, and of course keeping in mind the history of where we had our cursor, what we're trying to do, it's probably I want to have this method, bam. And I can just tap complete, read through it to see if this is valid or not, because this says now we're looking at name contains model, for example. If I need to filter that, and things like that. So this is not necessarily the entire implementation, but it saves me so much time instead of picking and choosing all the ways that I need to convert the calling method into the actual method signature that I need. So that was definitely a eye-opener for me, saying, okay, if I do it like this, then I get way more value out of Copilot, because Copilot can do more for me in one go. Most of the time it has the right context. See the previous video, for example, of this is where I should implement that, and these are the parameter types, for example, that need to be sent in. And it works really well, and it saves me tons and tons of time. So that's it for this level of Enlightenment. I would definitely recommend checking out the rest of the series as well, because these are definitely some little aha moments that I went through over a longer period of time that I feel made me a better power user of GitHub Copilot. See you in the next video.